Yeah, we're on here. And, fuck. Where to start? I know. Here in Springfield, there was a guy named Joe Crane. Joe Crane was a weatherman for a local news station here in Springfield. I couldn't tell you which one, I don't watch TV. But he was fired. Very recently, like last week. He was fired specifically because he was criticizing, on air, this red alert system. This system that Sinclair has to warn of dangerous weather. And the criticism that he had of it was that it isn't very good. It doesn't take into account, for example, that not all storms are the same, and it's something that's like exceptionally eye-catching, but not very substantive. He described it as I remember because I read this. He described it as something that was designed by a journalist and not someone familiar with how weather works. Except those weren't completely his complaints. The thing is that people had been complaining to Joe Crane about these things for months, maybe, for a while. And he was articulating those complaints that he had been receiving. And that provoked the ire of an executive at Sinclair Broadcasting, the people who had demanded that these weather alerts had been put in place in the first place. And that executive decided to fire Joe Crane for articulating concerns that the viewers had. He's been getting a lot of support here in Springfield. A lot of local businesses have actually pulled out of advertising on the news channel that he used to be on, specifically because, that's kind of shitty what happened to him. I'm to understand that he has another job lined up, so, he's not in trouble or anything. If anything, this has raised his reputation tremendously. You could almost think it of being similar to a situation where some fascist takes down a video here on YouTube and everyone reposts it. There have been articles about this exact situation, that I'm talking about, in a bunch of major news sites. I was reading an article from the Washington Post about it. And as I was reading it, I couldn't help but think that it kind of reminded me of the situation with the guy who directed Guardians of the Galaxy. I just blanked on his name. What is it? Okay, so James Gunn, that's what it is. So James Gunn was fired from Disney. He was fired as a director from Guardians of the Galaxy after author of the Gorilla Mindset and a member of the club of people who don't know how time works, fucking Mike Cernovich, claimed that he found genuinely kind of offensive tweets that he made 10 years ago and had already apologized for. And the story that eventually came out was that some executive at Disney, I don't know who it is exactly, made a spur-of-the-moment decision to shit-can James Gunn because he didn't want this trouble for Disney and he needed to prove that he had the biggest swinging dick. The executive, not James Gunn. And at the time, that was kind of worrying because people were thinking, oh, this is a dry run for firing the director of The Last Jedi. I remember people were speculating about that, but no, it's just corporate bullshittery, evidently. And James Gunn got hired back after all the hullabaloo died down. But, that's the thing. There was a great big hullabaloo about it. And there's a great big hullabaloo about Joe Crane now. There are companies all over the city of Springfield who have vocally voiced support for Joe Crane, up to and including, there's a place in town called Cup of Java. It's like a local coffee shop. I go there to get chai tea, and because it's really good. And, one of their gimmicks is they have someone who does paintings, and usually silly little paintings. And these paintings are puns, basically. But when I went there today, they had a message of support explicitly. Someone had went and painted, and they made a whole new painting explicitly supporting Joe Crane. I'll see if I can find a picture of it, or an article about it or something. I'm going to have to link a lot of articles down in the underbar. But people are making a hullabaloo about it. It grabbed people's attention because they are aware of the unfairness of it. And that brings us to the real point of this video, the situation with Steven Crowder and Carlos Maza, which is almost the opposite. I'll get to it. So for those who are not in the know, there's this journalist who works for Vox News called Carlos Maza, who made a Twitter thread about the extreme homophobic and anti-immigrant harassment that he'd been receiving from a man called Steven Crowder and Steven Crowder's fans. This thread was picked up by Sean of the channel Sean, the Skull Reclaimer. And Sean did what he described as a trick, where he made the team at YouTube, the tech support team at YouTube, aware that this harassment was going on. The harassment team, I'm to understand, said something like, there's nothing we can do about it, but we can kick it up and have people look at it. And the people upstairs did look at it. And they said it didn't break their rules, despite actually, literally, explicitly breaking their rules. And this is during Pride Month, so there's also another thing, but where YouTube is explicitly pulling white nationalist content from their website, but that's trickier, and I'll get to that later. So what I assume happened is something really similar to, that's where the title of the video comes from, there was some executive bullshittery. Someone high up in the YouTube chain of command objected to pulling Steven Crowder from the YouTubes. Maybe because he thought that calling someone a lispy queer is the height of comedy. Yeah. You think someone like that's working at YouTube? It's more likely than you think. Maybe because it would be more trouble than it's worth. Louder with Crowder, not only is Louder with Crowder, bringing in a lot of revenue, but I'm fairly certain that they're part of CRTV, or Rebel Media. No, they're part of CRTV, and those shows do pull in a lot of revenue, so, the blowback from that would be bigger than just Crowder's fans. It would be like a multi-channel network fallout, and that would be bad for YouTube. But for whatever reason, they chose to keep this person on despite breaking their rules. And also in spite of the fact that they're pulling down white nationalist content. But they're not doing that. The thing about that, it's a misnomer to say that they're pulling down white nationalist content, because that's not exactly all they're doing. They're targeting specific groups of people, some conspiracy theorists, especially people who promote Sandy Hook conspiracies, some white nationalists, and some anti-Semitic people. And they're doing this for a specific reason. Those people are being litigated in courts. White nationalists who assembled in Charlottesville have been arrested and put in jail. Alex Jones is famously being litigated for his attacks on the parents of the children who were fucking murdered! The children who were fucking murdered at Sandy Hook. And anti-Semitic people are being cracked down on over in Europe. The reason that YouTube, and this is speculation on my part, I can't confirm this. The reason that YouTube is pulling down this content is because they don't want to be made liable for the actions of the people who are currently going to jail and being litigated. They're doing it to cover their ass. They're not doing it out of the kindness of their own hearts. And that's why that kind of ties into the whole Louder with Crowder thing. No one's litigated Louder with Crowder. Not yet. No one's litigated CRTV. No one's litigated Steven Crowder. They haven't needed to. Or haven't felt compelled to. If they did, then they'd pull him, no question. But, like, it's still shitty, right? It would still be cool if there was something that we could do about it. That's my cat. Let's switch. Maybe there is something we can do. So there's this other person on YouTube who makes videos about how everything is secretly about how capitalism is awful and socialism is great, called Curio. Curio had this suggestion that a bunch of people go on strike, amongst other things. I'm not exactly sure how well a strike would function amongst, like, content creators. In the sense that, like, ad revenue for... The revenue that people like us bring in is minuscule compared to trash channels like PewDiePie and Jake Paul and the CRTV group. But something that it could do, if enough people make a ruckus about it, is get people's attention. It could get on the news, and it could unsettle shareholders. And that's what we want to try and aim to do. See, here's the thing that I feel people don't understand about YouTube, and about most companies in general. So, people like me who create content, and people like you who view that content, we're an audience, but we are not the people who are being catered to. We are not the... We're the product. We are a product that Google, or the Alphabet Company, as I understand that they're called, we are a product that is being sold. And we are being sold to shareholders and advertisers. And if we make a ruckus, that will upset the shareholders and the advertisers. If enough people decide that this strike thing is worth doing, then just as a matter of transparency, I'm going to participate in that. I can upload my videos in other places, or I have ideas for how I can do that. But I feel like we have to focus on, if we want to do this, then we have to do this with a specific purpose in mind. And that purpose is to spook the people who are controlling the money that Google needs to survive. So, yeah. Go check out Curio. He does fun stuff. Make sure you do it with your ad block on. And, you know, I made a video about Roe v. Wade, and I'm just I'm a little bit salty that no one seems to have watched that. Maybe that's my fault. It's not very interesting. I made a specific choice to present it in as neutral a way as possible. I'm thinking of, like, redoing it in a quote-unquote entertaining way, but not sure how I do that yet. Next video is going to be a scripted video about what intersectionality is, why it's necessary for the left, and how we do the intersectionality. After that, I think I'm going to do another video like this, about the straight pride parade and why it's bullshit, because I told someone I'd do that for them. Kind of like I told someone I'd do this for them. I told Curio I'd make this video. And I think that's everything I have to say. I'm all said out. Until we get there, take care of yourselves, alright?